Animal cruelty is pretty straightforward in that you still have to kill an animal, but I would argue that there's a bunch of people in the world who rely upon eating meat. Who would those people be? This is why I still want to touch upon it. So some people will say killing meat or killing animals to eat meat is bad because you're killing an animal and you're killing a sentient being with feelings and all that. It's cruel. You shouldn't be doing that. But there's a group of people, a bunch of people in the world who rely on eating meat and they can't get anything else.
Omnivores?
Well, omnivore means you eat plant and meat. But there's a group of people in the world that can only eat meat and they can't eat vegetables. Who would those people be?
So like the patients who have to eat meat?
Well, I don't want to go into a medical condition. Let's just say they're living in an area where they don't have plants. Where would that be?
Desert?
Deserts, sure. What else?
Cold place.
Cold places like where?
Like tundra?
Antarctica.
So Eskimos. Eskimos. Do you think that they can eat plants?
No.
No. It's very hard. So they rely upon eating meat. And does that mean that they don't get any vegetables? No. They drink the blood. They eat the internal organs. Was that in the blood? There are vegetables. Why? Because the animals eat the vegetables or whatever vegetation is in there.
That's cruel.
Well, I'm just saying, for the people who are living in that area, they rely upon eating meat. And during that process, they're getting the plant nutrients that the animals ate. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember our argument was that how people in cold places they have to eat meat, which is why.
Otherwise, they have nothing to eat and they'll die. And there's no reason for them to live there. But they like living there. They like living in igloos and having the cold. And that's their culture, and you gotta respect them for that. But for them to continue living on, they have to eat, and the only thing that's available to them is eating meat. There's another group of people who rely upon meat as a primary food source. Let me give you a hint.
What do you mean by group of people?
Well, Eskimos are a group of people.
Oh.
People who live in deserts are a group of people. There's another group. Let me give you a hint. They move around.
Cavemen?
What?
Cavemen. No, that's like
You know, like the travelers who like travel with the like horses in the Europe, that side,
Like for traveling for fun? No, we're talking about people. Was that? Explorers? Okay, I guess they would be explorers. But nomads. Do you know what that word means? Nomads? Nomads are people who raise herds of animals, whether it's sheep, whether it's cows, whether it's horses or whatever, and they move around from one place to another.
We had this in our what's it called, the unit, the what's it called, the yeah.
So nomads are people who don't stay in one area. They move around from one place to another. Why? Because they have a bunch of animals that they need to take care of, and the animals need to eat grass. And if you only stay in one area, they eat all the grass, and there's nothing else to eat. So they have to be constantly moving from one place to another. Does that make sense? So nomads, they also rely upon meat, eating meat as a primary food source. Okay? To give you an example, are you guys familiar with the Mongols?
Yeah.
Genghis Khan?
Yes.
They were a nomadic tribe. So they were moving they were moving around from places to places, and they didn't really farm all that much. So they didn't have a lot of plants laying around. So they were eating mainly horse milk and horse meat. Yeah.
There's this thing called horse meat.
Yeah, Koreans eat horse as well. What are you talking about?
That's
It's good. It's really good.
You eat horse?
Yeah, it's good. It's very tasty. Yeah.
Why do you milk a horse?
Well, just because horses need to, baby horses need to eat the milk from their mom horses, and humans thought, okay, if we can milk a cow and sheep, and stuff like that, why can't we milk a horse? And they did that, and it was a really important food source for them.
those humans are crazy. Just
No.
like little
Well,
cows.
for them, it was a necessity. They didn't have any other choice. That's
If
what
you're
I'm trying to
calling
tell you.
them crazy, then they might look at us and be like, wow, they're eating cows, they're crazy.
The reason why I bring this up, okay, the reason why I bring this up is because nomads, I don't know if they feel this way now, but ancient times, there were a group of people who were nomads who thought that owning land was evil. For me to say I own this piece of land was not a good idea. Why? Because who gave it to you? God gave it to you, or the Mother Nature gave it to you, right? Or the cosmos gave it to you. Who's to say this little piece of land is mine and nobody can trespass and nobody can come into my property? There was no such thing according to these nomadic people. And what they did was they just circulated around so that they appreciate nature and they reap the benefits from what's naturally growing. But at the same time, they didn't want to occupy a position and say, this is our empire, this is our little country, this is our little area, and whoever invades us, we're gonna attack and we're gonna go to war. They didn't have that in their vocabulary. They thought that owning land was a bad idea.
But
They-
the Mongols like fought like other countries.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the Mongols. There were nomadic tribes before that. And Korean descendants, we are descendants from nomadic tribes in the north. And there were a group of people who thought, yeah, we're just gonna follow around the stars and just keep on moving around. We're never gonna stop. And the idea was there was 12 tribes, and each tribe would take turns going around, and no one tribe would get the best land, because not all land is equal. Some land is really good, some land is really harsh, and some land, like weather is bad, whatever. So to avoid fighting, the 12 tribes, they would go around in circles and take turns using that land. And they thought it was a better way to preserve life and honor the gods.
Shared land.
They were sharing the land. So can you say that these people were cruel? Can you say that these
No.
people were like, evil people? It's hard to argue that. It's really, really hard to argue that. So animal cruelty in the current farming methods, the current meat production levels that we have right now, sure, it's very cruel. No doubt about that. But eating meat in and of itself, to say it's cruel, that's another story. There's a bunch of people who rely upon eating meat as their primary food source. So just let me throw that out there. And also health benefits. I do have to touch upon this. I know it's a serious portion of this topic, but the reason why I didn't want to include it again is because it's too broad. Why? Saying that eating meat alone will kill you or will be harmful to you, that's a really harsh statement. Because there are people who need to eat meat, and everybody's digestion is different, everybody's metabolism is different. Some people actually thrive on just eating plants, and some people thrive on eating meats. And if you tell a person who absolutely need meat and say you can only live on a plant diet, you're actually harming that person. And if you're asking somebody who is perfectly happy with eating a plant-based diet and say you need to eat meat now, that's also another issue. They don't want to do that. So health effects, health benefits ranges from person to person. Although we can make educated guesses about how much should we be eating, and whether what kind of meats are actually good for us or better for us, we can argue about that. But to say that eating meat in and of itself is bad or good for your health, it's such a loaded topic that's very hard to get anywhere. So the environmental impact is something that's more concrete, at least coming from my side, and something that's relatively approachable for you guys to talk about. That's why we're focusing on the environmental aspect, okay? But I'm letting you know, the people who are against eating meat, they're gonna say it's cruel to the animals, it's potentially bad for your health, and we're wrecking the environment, so we shouldn't be doing that. Which is a fair argument, but we're gonna, like I gave you the examples for why it may not be cruel, or why it may help you with your health, but environmental aspects of it is something that we can just have something concrete and talk about. Let's move on to the next slide.